What is Magdalene's gift to mankind living in the 21st century? Very simply, Magdalena has given us a wealth of knowledge, and in her knowledge she has shared with us the practicalities of applying her love, and none more so than the example recorded in the New Testament Bible when she knelt before her beloved Jesus, her master, her teacher, her husband, and she washed his feet with her tears, tears of joy, and yet tears mixed with sadness, because she knew he was becoming the sacrificial lamb, taking upon himself the transgressions of God's children. And having performed that sacred act, she proceeded to use the most expensive oil, Spikenard, which we use here in the making of the blessed oils given to us several years ago by Magdalena, a process that takes some 4 hours with a lot of prayer and fasting, so that nothing of a negative mindset contaminates the essence of divine love contained in this simple bottle, which is not mass-produced, but within this bottle of pure oil, olive oil, there is the spikenard and various essences of rosemary, eucalyptus, and pure grains of frankincense. And Magdalena's therapy isn't New Age. It's an ancient therapy that goes back to the time of the Therapeutia Essenes, founded by Enoch in Egypt at Mount Sinai. And I was very privileged to be guided by Magdalena to take people there on guided retreats for some 5 years. And there I found my spiritual home, not realizing the ley lines of Sinai to Jordan to Mount Carmel went right through the resort, and various people in the group were starting to tremble and shake, and they thought something was happening, like a mini earthquake, but it wasn't. They were standing on the sacred energy lines, the ley lines that the Essenes used to walk from Sinai, Mount Sinai, into Judea, to Mount Carmel. But Magdalena's gift is something more precious than a bottle of oil, because Magdalena's therapy is rooted in her bloodline, the tribe of Benjamin, the therapists, the healers. And when she met Jesus at an early age, when he was brought into Egypt by his mother and father Joseph and Mary, they would have grown up together because they were connected, they were related. They were Essenes. Though Jesus was a Nazarene Essene and Magdalena was a Therapeutia Essene of Egypt, but yet they had something in common. They had a spirituality, an essence, we call it a twin flame. But Magdalena would have practiced this therapy, this anointing of the soul, as a high priestess of Isis. And when I was guided to go to Philae, the temple of Isis, I became aware of her presence. I became aware of the connection with Jesus and Osiris, with Isis and Mother Mary, and I know that Isis incarnated as Mother Mary. But the similarities are so strong. But the therapy, I never realized, but as a young monk back in the 1968, when I was sent up to Northern Ireland to work as a trainee psychiatric nurse, as a monk, we would meet some really difficult cases where patients wouldn't settle, and particularly when we had various political factions giving us anonymous tip-offs that we had bomb scares approaching, and we had a lot of psychotic patients running riot. To calm them down, I would just go to the cupboard, get some arachis oil that we would use for keeping the skin supple to stop them getting pressure sores, and I would start massaging the feet and the hands and just talk quietly to them to relax. Little did I realize that I was actually demonstrating a therapy of Magdalene. I didn't have the right language. I didn't call her Magdalene because at that time the church portrayed Magdalene as a whore, a prostitute. In my heart I could never accept that. I knew there was something more to Magdalene than being a whore or a prostitute. And over the last few years I became aware, and I believe that Magdalene wrote the Gospel of Love, and St. John gave her his name to protect her, because she was hounded by the early apostles, particularly Peter, who was an egghead. He was always impetuous, whereas Magdalene, she had a strong spiritual influence on that early community of Christians. But Magdalene gave us a gift, a treasured gift, and it's called a soul anointing, and it involves us using our hands and offering our hands in service to God, and asking the cosmic Christ to anoint our hands, to bless them, as her oils are poured on our hands, and we work from the knee to the toe in gentle, soft anointing. It's not a massage, it's not an aromatherapy, but something happens. There's an exchange. We are the vehicle, the conduit, the facilitator. Magdalene is the one who brings the Christ energy through our hands. Yes. And it is the Christ with Magdalene who anoint the soul of God within our being. It is a simple yet awesome therapy. And of all the therapists that I've trained, both here in the UK, in Ireland and abroad, the feedback has been so humbling. And whilst I hear what they're saying, I take no credit. I give it back to Magdalene, because I could have said no. But I stood with her, and I've walked alongside with her in faith, and I have a great respect for Magdalene, and that's why we have her as one of our patrons, along with Kuan Yin, Magdalene and Francis in the Teo community of Interfaith Franciscans, because it's important to have balance. And as a male, it's important for me not to be afraid to embrace the divine feminine, whereas men are afraid to embrace their feminine side for fear society labels them gay or queer. How sad. But Magdalene's therapy is a soul anointing, where her energies, her love, her compassion, and that of the Christ anoint the God, the Father, Mother God within our soul. And the therapy, yes, we have to be careful with energy. So I would say to anybody, you don't rewire your house unless you've got some preliminary training, particularly a certificate of accreditation. And Magdalene will train you if you're drawn to work with her. Ask her. And the therapies and the training she guided us to provide here is the diploma in Essenic Energy Medicine, rooted in her lineage. And it's done on a one-to-one, and it's not rushed, and it's from the heart. It's not academic, it's from the heart, to the heart of God. So Magdalene's therapy, is it needed today? I would say most definitely yes. Because we're living in a world that's influenced by male ego. Even in the church, there's still that strong domination of male ego, a battle of wills, and we need to soften it. We need to bring in the feminine, and this is her gift, the feminine energies of the divine. Because when there's balance with male and female energy, then there is harmony, then there is divine connection, and then the soul is anointed in the presence of God.